Hey everyone, welcome to a special first day of free agency bonus edition of Locked On Lakers. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers very busy on the first day, filling out the roster, re-signing Rui Hachimura. Much more to come. We'll tell you all about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, owning sometimes, obviously, Andy, on Saturdays. No matter how or where you get your podcast, it's always free, never going to be behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube has cruised past 18,000 subscribers. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Everybody there talking about what the Lakers did on Friday, the opening day of NBA free agency. A down year for free agency general, meaning it wasn't quite a day filled with as much fireworks and crazy stuff happening as we've seen in years past, but still very busy and still
Fred
very
VanVleet would care to argue that
I didn't say there were none. I didn't say there weren't any. I'm just saying it wasn't as insane a free agent first day as we've seen, but the Lakers were not a team sitting on the sideline. They were very busy on that first day. So we will break down everything that the Lakers did. Just a quick rundown. They re-signed Rui Hachimura, 3 years, $51 million. They added Taurean Prince to what looks like their biannual exception. Gabe Vincent from Miami to what looks like their most of their mid-level exception. The inevitable Cam Reddish to a veteran's minimum contract, which means we're still basically just waiting around to see what happens with D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, but the Lakers have room to re-sign both of them. So, do you want to start with, Andy, the re-signing of Hachimura or talk about the new guys? It's all fertile ground to me.
Let's start with Rui, just because I think it's kind of the most self-evident in the sense that fans are quite familiar with Rui over the last few months. But it was, I think, important that they brought him back.
Yep.
But I also think it speaks to Rob Pelinka making good so far on what he was saying about wanting to maintain continuity.
Yep.
And they brought back Rui. All signs that they are going to bring back Austin Reeves, but Team Reeves is, I'm sure, waiting around to see if at least somebody makes an offer for the Lakers to match. There's from Reeves's perspective, there's absolutely no reason to go this early. Like Rui is different. You could sort of have an idea of what the market would be and proactively go with this. For Reeves, the only way he can make more than, I believe it's $53 million is for somebody to offer it.
Right.
So it makes sense.
Quite frankly, I don't even think the Lakers mind. I think they fully understand like Reeves is worth more than that. If by chance another one, we'll talk about this whether in detail on this special bonus podcast, or certainly for, if we do another one tomorrow, depending on what happens, or certainly for Monday. I'm very curious to see what happens if Reeves doesn't get that offer because teams don't assume the Lakers are going to match or whatever it is, how they structure that contract. And then obviously D'Angelo Russell, because of everything the Lakers did today, everybody kind of knows the most the Lakers can give him. I don't know currently what they're offering him. All accounts are that they still want to bring him back. There is a number. The Lakers are now hard capped at $172.3 million, I believe it is, for next year. So when you start to add in, they still have to add, I think, 4 more guys via minimum contracts, and they have these other dudes to sign or whatever. They know the number, the very max that they can give Russell. Don't know what they're offering now. D'Angelo also doesn't have a whole lot of incentive to sign quickly. Might as well see what else the market can bear. But anyway, Hachimura, 3 years, $51 million. I will be honest, this is a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be by a couple million a year. That said, it's not crazy high. It's just it's probably towards the upper end of what the Lakers figured they could get him at.
I had predicted 15 to 17 million, and they went on the high end of it. No issue with that at all.
I think, this is particularly given the makeup of the roster, it's a move the Lakers absolutely 100% had to make, because if there is a major hole in this team right now. You could argue about shooting this and that, whatever, in terms of skill sets, but just in terms of on paper stuff, like they are short size. And so like if they let Hachimura go, the ability to replace him, as we talked about in previous shows, was virtually zero. Maybe most of the full mid-level, which they used on Gabe Vincent, which we'll get to in a second, you would have almost had to use on power forward or a center. There aren't a lot of those guys left. The Lakers are going to have to figure out a way to add at least a couple larger bodies via the veterans minimum and, throw some darts in that respect. The Phoenix Suns kind of used up most of those people. They took a lot of dudes off the market on Friday in terms of those veterans minimums. But, I have some trepidation about the difference in production and stuff with Hachimura at 17 versus what he was making this year. But this is life in the NBA, and they weren't going to be able to replace him with a player that's as good. And certainly based at least on what he did in the playoffs, Lakers, it's a fair number.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't blame the Lakers for feeling confident about Hachimura's future and potential and growth moving forward, beyond the fact that they really, from a practical standpoint, like you said, needed to re-sign him. I think he plays very well off LeBron or AD with both of them as a sub for either one of them. As we've talked about a lot, when he gets going as a scorer in isolation at that size with that athleticism, he can be a very difficult cover. I think that they unlocked certain ways to use him that works really well. He's only 25. He just turned it. So there is potential for growth, particularly too, in an atmosphere where him being the 6th overall pick no longer matters.
And he just has stability. He is presumably going to be here. His role, like you say, changes to where he's not expected to be a star. He knows what he's supposed to be here. And, that certainly will help him. If there was any sort of indication, though, that Hachimura wasn't, in fact, going anywhere, he is scheduled to throw out the first pitch at a Dodgers game on July 8th. That is a tricky thing to do when you've just signed with another team. But
better not sign with the Clippers, I'll tell you that much.
Right. Shout out to our friends at Follow Through and CJ Toledano. I'm really excited that my Bluey Hachimura t-shirt will have at least 3 years of shelf life in LA. Let's move on to the new guys. The Lakers, the players the Lakers signed. Maybe we'll just do it in order. Taurean Prince, forward, veteran forward now. He's 29, I believe. He's 29. 29. Yeah. 29. So he's been around a little while. Signed him from Minnesota. Good indication of how the Lakers were approaching things came when we saw the financials on that. It was $4.5 million, which meant the Lakers were planning, probably, none of this is official until everything is completely done, but presumably the Lakers used their biannual exception on him, which means they were committing to cap themselves out at that first apron. Prince is not a perfect player by any stretch of the imagination. That's why he's available, $4.5 million. But it's a nice signing for the Lakers, kind of filling that Troy Brown role. Brown, ironically, goes to Minnesota, but a better player. Similar, length, 3-point shooting, and all that stuff. Taurean Prince is a better player than Troy Brown.
Yeah, he's bigger than Troy's more of a 2-3. He's more of a 3-4. He's bigger than Troy Brown. The last 3, he's coming off a season where he shot 38% from behind the arc. The last 3 seasons, he shot 38% or better. He also this year had a career high 47% from the field overall. So one of his best seasons as a scorer. This season, he was over 42% from both corners from behind the arc, and a good enough 35% above the break. He was also 41% on catch and shoot threes. And that's obviously something that you will get a lot of from LeBron. You can get those looks from Austin Reeves, assuming he's back. You can get those looks from D'Angelo Russell, assuming he's back. He is not a lockdown defender, or, I would even necessarily say a great defender, but I think he's solid and he's got some versatility in the
very
looks.
Good athlete, and all that kind of stuff. And it's a reasonable use of that $4.5 million.
Absolutely.
Again, not a perfect player, but
it's a little curious that teams always seem pretty willing to move off him.
I mean, to your point, he has now played for, let me go back to his page on Basketball Reference. I mean, he's only been in the league since 2016 was his rookie year with Atlanta. He's played, this will be his 5th team, the Lakers next year. So yeah, teams always seem to be kind of willing to move off of him. There was a moment where, in his, second year with Atlanta, second, maybe even going to his 3rd year, where it looked like he might really kind of blow up into a, more of a top tier guy. Averaged 14 points his second season in the NBA, 38% from 3-point range, and all that hasn't quite panned out. Certainly, just is turned into just a pretty good role player. But he feels a size need that the Lakers have, an athleticism need, will free up some stuff in the Lakers rotation as a either a mobile 4 or a pretty big 3.
And he's got a history, by the way, with Darvin Ham. You mentioned that time that he was with the Hawks. That's when Darvin was an assistant. So, if nothing else,
a good, solid veteran at this point. Yeah. I had no problem with this one. I think this, interestingly enough, the Gabe Vincent signing, which kind of came out a few minutes after that,
and felt kind of out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, he's not. There have been so much. The Lakers drafted a point guard. They're expected to bring back D'Angelo Russell. There was still speculation that they would try to bring back Dennis Schroeder. I don't think we'd spent a whole lot of time on other point guards, like team people that they might have signed. And Vincent, when we did talk about it, I know we talked briefly on a show about a potential. He was like, "Hey, what about that guy if Schroeder leaves?"
I thought he'd be staying in Miami.
So did I. I didn't think the Heat would let him go, but they had a situation they couldn't offer more than $7.5 million. So the Lakers obviously blew that out of the water. Schroeder, by the way, ended up signing for $13 million. So much, much more than the Lakers could offer, even with that full mid-level with the Toronto Raptors after Fred VanVleet went to Houston for a boatload of money, which is relevant, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Lakers Twitter was very excited about the Vincent signing. A lot of people who are really just anti-D'Lo in these forums looked at it. It's like, all right, we got our D'Lo replacement, but really he's a Schroeder replacement, or
should be, if nothing else.
I think that the intention is that he is a Schroeder. He is clearly not intended to replace Russell, which is good because as Gabe Vincent as a replacement for Schroeder, I'm on board. They are similar players in that sense. Smaller guards, Vincent 6'3". I'll go ahead and say streaky 3-point shooting, but both play very, very hard. Both are attentive defenders. They have that proverbial dog in them. So, I mean, you get a lot of the same qualities with Vincent that you do Schroeder. So as long as he's there to fill that role, I'm okay. Because I do think he's getting some of the shine, I think, from his Eastern Conference playoff run that is overshadowing maybe some of his flaws as a player, in the same way that Russell is getting crushed for his Western Conference finals that, in my opinion, overshadow his strengths as a player.
Yeah, you mentioned his playoffs, and I think on balance, Vincent's coming off a really, really good playoffs. Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo were both out, which led to more opportunity for Vincent than probably anybody anticipated heading into the postseason. I think he made good on the opportunity. He was particularly good in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. So
by the way, it should be noted, was the highest profile series that they played. Shot 48, almost 49% in that series, and over 51% from 3-point range. So he was excellent against the Celtics.
Had a 29-point game in Game 3. The one Heat win in the finals against Denver, he had 23 points, and for the whole in the playoffs, he averaged nearly 13 points, 3.5 assists, 38% from behind the arc. These are really good numbers for Gabe Vincent. But I want to preface this by saying I agree with Brian. This is a good signing. Like, assuming everything else comes to fruition the way it should.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, I think
I don't love it. It leaves the Lakers pretty guard heavy, but I don't have. You got to replace Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah,
it's reasonable,
right? And unless you absolutely know Jalen Hood-Schifino is ready, like you said, you need to replace Schroeder. But just again, I want to make sure people don't interpret this as me or you being down on Vincent. I like it as a signing. I'm good with it. Just people should understand his shooting in the postseason is much higher than his career numbers. He's career 35% from behind the arc. He was 33% this season. Best season ever is 37%. He's not really much of a scorer in any way other than from behind the arc. He's in the 13th percentile this year for accuracy around the rim. His mid-range numbers are good, but he never takes the shots, so it doesn't really matter. He's not a great distributor as a point guard. He's really not a rebounder. Like,
Dennis Schroeder's a better player.
Yeah, probably. He probably is a better player on balance.
I think. I think Schroeder's a better player.
He probably is. I mean, we'll see. We also saw throughout Schroeder's career, and then at times, I think more often in his first stint with the Lakers, you could see more of the flaws. Mm-hmm. But either way, though, I like this with Vincent. To your original point, I think Laker fans need to make sure that they don't overblow what Vincent did in the playoffs or with Miami, in large part because they are still so angry at D'Angelo Russell.
Right. And nor is it, he is not somebody you can say, well, Gabe Vincent is nails in the playoffs, because the postseason previous, and Vincent played, pretty good amount, averaged, in the postseason before that, 22, 23, 24 minutes a game. Last season for the Heat, shot 38% from the field, and had some, second round of the playoffs, shot 18% from 3-point range. Like he had some clunkers last year.
Right.
And he's a role guy. And so it's important to keep things in perspective. The Lakers will be significantly worse if Russell ends up leaving, and you try to slot Gabe Vincent into that starting lineup. You're just not going to get the spacing problems the Lakers have with shooting will get way worse. So
the responsibility on LeBron, the responsibilities
it's not
Reeves.
Right. As a Schroeder replacement, I am 100% on board. This is what the market is, and there wasn't a center available for $11 million that I would rather have than a good solid backup point guard. And he'll get plenty of chances to play. The last thing that the Lakers did was sign Cam Reddish to a 1-1 veterans minimum. Sure. I mean, look, the Lakers have had 1,000 different opportunities to obtain Reddish. This is easily the cheapest one. It doesn't get any cheaper than a veterans minimum. But and look, I put him with Phil Handy. Maybe he's got a chance to do some fine, but it's not like the staffs that he's been with have been all trash either. It's like, he's going to come out in my mind and have 3 or 4 games. He always does this at the beginning of a stint with a team where like, oh my God, look at that. And then you play him a little bit more and the defense is terrible and he starts to miss shots. And I don't expect anything to come out of this, but as long as they're not relying on him to give good minutes, sign Cam Reddish to a veterans minimum, see if you can unlock something that wasn't there before. And if you don't, no harm, no foul, but I would not devote a lot of minutes to try to make fetch happen here.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've never been 100% certain whether or not the rumors linking Reddish to the Lakers for the last few years have been Pelinka being genuinely interested in him or Clutch kind of pushing this onto the Lakers. Like
distinction without a difference, perhaps.
Well, it's funny. It reminded me of that scene in Ferris Bueller where, Cameron's in the car and he doesn't want to pick up Ferris and he'll keep calling. Fine. I'll go. Like there's a part of me that felt like Pelinka's like, Jesus, okay, fine.
When Pelinka was in Egypt's land.
If this gets Clutch off my ass, right, fine, I'll sign the guy.
And it's not Rich Paul that's calling every day. It's like an intern that gets the Cam Reddish beat.
But all kidding aside, though, he was drafted this high, even if it was a mistake, for a reason. Like sure. He's got great size. He is a really athletic kid. He's only 23. Mm-hmm. So it's a real upside, no harm, no foul type situation.
Totally.
And if it happens to work out, then you've got a very young guy that you can potentially grow with guys like Austin
Well,
Reeves
maybe.
and
And I think it's a
Hachimura.
one-on-one that somebody would have to refresh me on the rules of like, if he plays really well, does he leave? But okay, fine. But then you got one season out of Cam Reddish
Right.
where he played really well and your team benefits. But what they have clearly done is put themselves in a position where they're not going to be at all reliant on Reddish being good for this team to win games. And as long as that's the situation, I'm okay with it.
In the past, it was like giving up something to bring him in.
No.
They are, by definition, giving up the least amount they possibly can. Anything else is illegal. Like, you can't go any lower in terms of what they're giving up to bring him in. You're not allowed to pay him less.
He can't be an intern.
And again, it can only work in their favor. There's no stakes involved. And if it happens to work, then you know what?
Right.
If nothing else, you realize, holy crap, their development programs in this franchise it's really good, because 3-4 other franchises tried with Reddish and it didn't work.
Three. He's the fourth. Portland gave it a shot. Had some. Go back and look at his game log with Portland. It was phenomenal at the beginning, and it starts to tail off. The Knicks, has got big box scores in there, and it tails off. The same with, it's just, and it's particularly defensively, where he's got the body and the athleticism, but very little of the sort of intuitiveness that it requires at this point to play NBA defense. But we'll see. Like, it's a no harm, no foul thing. Really, the last stuff for the Lakers is, who do they sign to these veterans minimum deals? And we're probably a few days away from really seeing that fully take shape. And then, does somebody give Reeves a bigger offer than what the Lakers can do? If so, the Lakers match. If not, what kind of contract do they put together? But he's not going anywhere. Austin Reeves will be a Laker next year. And then Russell, and despite this hard cap, the Lakers have plenty of room, assuming something crazy doesn't happen. The Lakers have room to bring him back. I think they had 39 million was the number I saw to split between Russell and Rui. Rui took 17 of that, which means they've got about, upwards of 20 to spend on Russell. I think that'll be fine. It's just a matter probably of what the structure of the deal is. Is it 1 year, 2 years, 2 with an option, all that stuff. So we'll see what happens. Very productive first day for the Lakers. Are they, assuming they bring those other guys back, a little bit better? Yeah, I think they probably are, because I think the addition of Prince plus Vincent, who is not a significant down. I think Schroeder's a little better, but Vincent's not a big step down. I think that's a better combination than whatever, the caveat being they have to find another big, because Bamba, losing that, they need height. They have one center on the roster right now, and need,
unless Castleton's really ready for some minutes.
So, all right, Locked On Lakers on YouTube, where you can go to hang out. We'll see what happens on Saturday. If big stuff happens, whether that's Russell or Reeves or whatever it might be, we'll maybe put together a little show for Sunday. But we'll at the very least be back for Monday. Good first day for the Lakers. No major surprises. Didn't get worse. Probably got a little bit better. Filling out the roster. If they can get some bigs and take care of the rest of the housekeeping, where everybody's looking good. See everybody next time.
Oh, wait. How do I want to set this up? The reads.
Oh, right. You're right. Sorry. I'll do the end again.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so good first day for the Lakers. Still some housekeeping to take care of, still some opportunities to get better with those veterans minimums. Desperately need to find a big. I think at the very least, they certainly didn't hurt themselves on a day where they lost a couple potential guys, but the addition of Prince plus Vincent, I think is nice. I think it's a nice way to do it. We will be back whether Sunday or certainly Monday for more based on what the Lakers have done, what's going on around the rest of the league for sure. But Andy, first we have to tell people about this.
That Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and it's easy to get caught up in whatever people need from you, everyone else around you in your life, and to never take a moment to think about what you need for yourself. It's hard to balance being there for your significant other, for your children, your extended family, your friends, work. But again, remembering to be there for yourself. And when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched out thin and burned out. And life does not come with a user manual. And when it's not working, it's normal to feel stuck in anxiety and uncertainty. And I can personally speak to how much therapy helped me during a really difficult period in my life for me and my family. And sitting down, talking with someone was huge. And BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, accessible anywhere, 100% online, no waiting rooms, no traffic. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. And if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Everybody have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you on the next show.